One of the things that's been happening inside this pandemic that we're currently living in is digital transformation. We've been seeing lots of people having to go online for school, for work, for services, for public utilities, for all the things that we used to do on a regular basis and stand up in lines for have now gone online. In 2020, the government would have established a Ministry of Digital Transformation, but it was attached to the Ministry of Public Administration at first, and now it's its own ministry. And this morning we have the Minister of Digital Transformation here with us, via Zoom, Senator the Honorable Hassel Bacchus. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning to you, Ruckus, and to your listeners and viewers.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, just looking at the changes, as I said, on the set from yesterday to today, it's chalk and cheese.
We're back to business. We're back to business. Yesterday was fun. Now we're back to business. So, speaking of business, tell me what's been going on at the Ministry of Digital Transformation. I know last time we spoke, you said that you guys were setting up the ministry, getting things in a gear to make sure that you can have a rollout, a seamless rollout. You have an update for us?
Yeah, well, you know, the ministry itself, as much as it's still fairly new, has had a lot on its plate to manage. As we work through this, the COVID pandemic made sure that this transformation thing had to happen fairly quickly. And, you know, just to be clear, what the ministry has been doing is working in partnership with many other ministries, divisions, agencies, the private sector, civil society, and so on, to look at what already exists in the networks that we have and try to assist them in making it better, for things to be easier for the people. It's about making people's lives better. And we've been doing that. Apart from our major projects that we have, which we could talk about a bit later, but really we've been doing a lot of collaboration to make what exists now work better for the people.
Right. So essentially you didn't have to start from scratch. What you're doing is building on things that already exist.
Exactly. You know, in some cases it might have been easier to start from scratch because you don't have the history of having to unravel certain things. Remember, this transformation it revolves around a number of facets, but let's just say people, process, systems, and of course the legal aspect of it. And when we have to build the technology in conjunction with transforming the culture of the people, while at the same time this process piece of not just changing how people do things, but in some cases changing what they do, you would recognize that the challenge is there. And because things that were already built, I mean, 10 years ago, we started this with our first national ICT plan, 10, 12, what we call Fast Forward, which was quite phenomenal for its time. But obviously, we've had to make changes to that now to get to where we need to. Number of things exist. If you just think about what you can do today that you couldn't do 2 years ago, you would recognize that there is a significant platform there that we can build on. The easiest one to look at, just look at the way courts happen today. I know the Attorney General had some serious issues in trying to convince people that virtual courts was the way to go. You look at it now, and you will find that, well, yeah, we probably will never go back to the way we were before.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to get there, and we're going to continue to work on.
Now, one of the things that you mentioned was the culture of the people. How has the reception been when you collaborate with other entities, with other agencies? How has the reception been to the changes?
You know, it's interesting that there is such enthusiasm and willingness to not just to participate, but to contribute to the changes that you have to have. I mean, the public sector is one thing, because that is managed by our sister ministry, the Ministry of Public Administration. But even there, you find a willingness and a want and a desire to want to do things, because when you look at what we're doing, Rockers, let's think about it this way. What we're doing is, and I'll put it into this sentence, we're creating a new way for the end-to-end delivery and consumption of goods and services to customers using digital technology. The customers in this case is not just the citizenry who will be trying to access the services, but it includes the public officers who deliver it. It includes the private sector who is also delivering it. So you needed to have that entire cohort work together for us to be able to get where we want to get to. And like I said, the reception has been tremendous. Our partnerships have worked across the board and across all the areas that we have. It really has been happening.
Now, I imagine that if you're doing this as partnerships, that we would not always know when the ministry has its hand involved in something. Can you enlighten us as to some of the collaborations that you've been working on and how they've been transformed so far?
Yeah, sure, certainly. We some of them are actually visible, quite visible. That's that people don't know it. If you want to look at maybe one that has had a significant impact on society relative to uh, immigration and relative to health, you could just look at what we did with Travel Pass. We had to get involved in that to work with the Ministry of National Security, the Ministry of Health, the Immigration Division, Civil Aviation, Airports Authority, Port Health. That entire collaboration went in, not to mention the airlines, went into what that created, and it works today and continues to work, and we continue to evolve it. We've been involved with agriculture, trying to assist in building repositories for information, involved with cocoa. Uh, the UE and the Kariri, for example, have significant impact on what is happening. But we're globally recognized, but they're using a lot of technology to do that. We want to add blockchain to that to allow for traceability of cocoa pods and so on, apart from their holding of the genomes. So we've been in those places. We've been helping the Ministry of Social Development work through their work that they're doing to digitalize stuff relative to their grants and all of the other pieces that they're doing. We've been helping and working directly with the licensing authority in some of it, of course, through the Ministry of Works and Transport, in other things that they're doing. And then, of course, through agencies like the Telecommunications Authority, where we've been rolling out additional Wi-Fi and changing and trying to limit and reduce that digital divide. So those are just a few. A number of them, I could go on for quite a while with that.
Well, I think it's important for you to point out some of them so that people have an understanding. Because I know some people were saying, well, I haven't been seeing the Ministry of Digital Transformation doing anything. But the behind the scenes work that you guys have been doing definitely would be important to note so that, just for transparency's sake. But tell me something, Minister. When it comes to people who maybe, I don't know, let's say living in rural communities, don't have ready access to things like devices, phones, like stuff like that. People who choose not to have phones. How does the work of your ministry affect them?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're trying to impact, the entirety of Trinidad and Tobago across three specific areas: the digital society, digital government, and the digital economy. That area you're talking about specifically fits nicely into the digital society piece. When we look at what has happened fairly recently in the budget presentation, the Honorable Minister of Finance, Colum Imbert, identified broadband as a public good. It means that it should be ubiquitous, it should be capable, it should be resilient, it should be available for people all the time. And the Telecommunications Authority recently, right at the end of, we have the preliminary results, did a digital inclusion survey, which looked across Trinidad and Tobago, trying to find just what you're talking about, areas that are underserved, unserved, or otherwise. It is interesting to note that the results from that survey have identified areas that were previously considered well-served as now being underserved. And the reason for that, of course, is the changes in consumer behavior. Right. What we use broadband for now is not what we used it for 2 years ago, and you could tell obviously why. But what we're doing about that is the number of the programs that we have are geared towards that. We're increasing and trying to limit that digital divide through intervention, specifically through the Telecommunications Authority and through the ministry. We're also working on having our access centers rolled out. Again, in the budget presentation, you would have heard the Honorable Minister of Finance identify that we've changed. We want to get to a number of close to 50 of the number of these, ICT access centers. And what they do is places that are, these are facilities that are staffed by people from the area. So if it's a rural area, for example, the people who work there will be from there. These are paid by the ministry. And it's a place where you can go without a device, without much knowledge of what you need to do, but just go there and you can be provided assistance. There are computers there, they have scanners there, they have printers there, and trained people who will assist you in what you need to do. And also, if you need training, they help you. Students go there to do homework, for example. That's another one of the things that we want to put those primarily in these underserved and unserved areas to give the people there a chance to get some of the things that will be commonplace in Port of Spain or in San Fernando or in Scarborough for that.
Yeah. Now, Minister, you mentioned that students can go there and do homework and stuff like that. And I know that we rolled out these homework centers some time back. They serve as sort of community centers, but homework centers for students to be able to come and access computers, access printers and scanners and that kind of thing as well. But we also saw that the communities didn't always readily receive them. Is the difference the payment by the ministry to say, all right, these are the skilled workers working in this center? Is that the difference regarding whether the community uses it or not?
You see, part of what we have to do, there are a couple of things, and this all fits into this people part that is of the four elements that we chose, the digital aspect is actually quite simple. I remember someone saying that digital transformation, the transformation is the hard part. When we look at the changes in behavior that we need, I think it was really important that we took a step back, and UNDP helped us to do a digital readiness survey. And again, it was well supported by all sectors of the society to give us a gauge as to what is happening and what are the hindrances that we may face in our digital rollout. What did we find and what have we done? But what we found is we need to significantly increase the digital IQ of our citizenry. And part of our digital society program is to do exactly that. Train people, not in getting them in to become IT experts, but to get them comfortable, give them the requisite tools to be comfortable with the use of ICT, to be comfortable and to start to have a level of trust in using it. Having people there to guide you through that process is important, but providing platforms and avenues for people, for themselves to gain the knowledge that they want, I think is also key and important. There's no replacement for the citizenry being able to trust the things that we're trying to produce, and that will only happen if they feel comfortable enough with the tools, and we of course put out appropriate solutions for them to use.
Of course, naturally. Now, Minister, something that happened recently that I'm sure would have affected your ministry would have been that blackout, the day of no current. If we all move everything digital, how do we mitigate situations like that if they were to, God forbid, ever happen again?
It's interesting. When I met with the GLAC, which is basically all of the IT professionals and the heads of departments in across all of government, all the ministries, divisions, and agencies. And I was trying to get them to understand that part of our movement is away from certain types of infrastructure into more modern cloud infrastructure. Trinidad and Tobago has a minimally 4 world-class certified data centers, tier 3 data centers on island, which is a lot more than any other Caribbean island has. We have 4 of them. And while we had this island-wide blackout across Trinidad, when I inquired of the service providers who own them, their services were 100% available. It meant that because this didn't affect Tobago from a power perspective, the people who were in Tobago, who had access to whatever they needed to and wanted to access a government service that was built and was housed in one of those clouds, they had absolutely no problem. And I was told that that could have gone on for weeks on end, and they would have been able to keep all of that running. Part of a digital, this transformation to digital requires that the underlying network support services be resilient as well. So loss of power affects you from the point of view that you needed to charge the device that you have. Right. But if let's say that your phone was charged and your laptop was charged and internet was available via, you were in a building with power, for example, you would have been able to access the services that were cloud-based and continue to use it. I'm sure for most of you, your mail didn't go down, your internet mail didn't go down.
Yeah.
And that's because it's housed in a cloud. The systems or the licensing division would not have gone down because they're sitting in a cloud. So you have different types of risk associated with that, but loss of power at a global scale doesn't affect the availability of the service, but it can affect the consumption of it because the individual customers may not have enough power to do what they need to do. That is an idea of the resilience of what happens when you apply this in the appropriate way.
Nice. So, Minister, before we wrap up, tell me, what does success look like to you for this ministry?
I was wondering if you get to that. What success looks like is that we are going to become a digital society. We are going to have resilient infrastructure, like I just explained, with cloud, and your services are going to be available. A lot of the solutions that we have are going to be built by our own people because we're building a developers hub and an ecosystem to allow that to happen. So I use the term by Trinidad and Tobago, for Trinidad and Tobago and the world. So we're going to be building our own solutions and selling them to the world. We're going to have significantly more efficient services in terms of delivery and consumption. And of course, because we're using electronic and traceable things, reduced levels of malfeasance and so on, significant e-transactions will happen, movement towards a cashless society. All of those things will be, but ultimately results to an enhanced quality of life. And of course, the ability for people to pursue their dreams. That's really where we want to go. That's what it looks like.
Well, we stay tuned to find out how it evolves, and we're going to check in with you again as much as we can. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Minister.
Well, thank you. And again, to your viewers, a good and belated birthday as well.
Thank you very much, sir. Take care. That's Senator the Honorable Hassel Bacchus, the Minister of Digital Transformation, checking in with us there to let us know exactly what's going on inside that ministry. Stay tuned. We have so much more in our morning show when we come back.